Hello and welcome back, and that is right. Today I want to talk about Synology and QNAP in 2025. I haven't actually done one of these for a while, and when your website's called NAS Compares, you probably should do it a little bit more than that. I used to compare these brands a lot more, but with so many other players in the market these days, we've really got to compare lots of different ones. But ultimately right now, with Synology making some changes to their appliance models and in 2025 changing support of certain things, I think there are a lot of users either existing or could have been potential Synology buyers that are looking at the other side of the street. Hence this video. We want to talk about what exactly both these brands give you and what they don't in 2025. We're going to talk about hardware, we're going to talk a lot about software, we're going to talk about security, and ultimately by the end of this video, I hope you know which one of these brands deserves your money and your data. But before we go any further, a few things out the gate. Number one, neither one of these two brands, Synology or QNAP, have supported or paid for this video. They don't pay or support for any of the videos when I talk about them. It's all my own words. They have no influence over it. Secondly, regardless of which one of these two solutions you go for, they do have a lot in common. Number one, they're both Taiwanese-based companies. They've both got a huge portfolio of solutions that range from hard drive, kind of desktop solutions, to flash SSD solutions, to rack mount and more. There's also a variety of applications available for Windows, for Mac, for Linux, as well as apps that you can run on iOS and Android. They also have their own dedicated and widespread application center with their own community homebrew backend as well. They've both got public community support forums. They've both got multiple sites all the way around the world where you can get support, and there is availability of practically every single country in the world as well. They both support their own dedicated backup appliance. They've both got multimedia appliances. They've both got photo applications. They've both got audio applications, slightly different on video applications, more on that later. They've both got cloud-based synchronization tools, iSCSI support, two-factor authentication. They've both got support of write once, read many, more on that later on as well. They've both got encryption, both on the folder and the storage level. They've both got network access, remote access. They've both got support of SMB, WebDAV, NT, just the works. They give you everything in that regard. There is very, very, very little that either one of these brands will give you that the other one doesn't. It is a question of how it is delivered to you and the quality of that is being delivered to you. But for now, let's move on to the hardware. Now, it will come as no surprise to many of you that have done even the most cursory observation on either one of these brands when shopping around that QNAP is the brand between these two that provides the better level of hardware. Synology is about the software. They're very much throwing around the phrase backup appliance. They see their solution as a appliance, and for that they are focusing more on the output. They're more dedicated towards the software of the thing, the solution to your problem. Now, QNAP, I'm not saying they don't do that, but they definitely throw a lot more nuts and bolts at it. And although both of these brands have got a wide variety of solutions that range from the simple ARM, low-powered based alternatives and 1 or 2 bay, scaling all the way up to 4, 6, 8, 12, 24 bay and larger in rack mount form, it has to be said that the general standard of hardware and the variety of hardware is way, 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 way better on the QNAP side of things. Synology have got fewer solutions, and their solutions tend to be lower powered. And by lower powered, I mean they have generally more efficient CPUs with fewer cores, fewer CPUs that have graphical capabilities. They also have traditionally, except with the release of some 2025 devices, the majority of their solutions arrive with 1 gigabit Ethernet ports, some of which either arrive with 10 GBE or the option to upgrade towards it, whereas QNAP has a wider variety of solutions with the base level at 2.5 gigabit Ethernet going into 5 gigabit Ethernet, and a huge variety of 10 gig solutions as well. They've both got hardware that spans towards different utility and price point, with a tiered portfolio that with every 50 to 100 NICA spend gives you a bit more hardware, but again, you get more on the QNAP side. More solutions to choose from, more hardware to choose from, and even unique hardware such as Thunderbolt NAS solutions that they've got. TPU AI upgrade cards, they've got combo cards they've got that allow you to add 10 GBE and M.2 NVMe support on there. And really, that leads us neatly into our next section, storage. Now, storage has fast become one of the reasons that a lot of users are looking away from Synology in 2025 at the enthusiast and prosumer level at the very least, and that is because devices from Synology in the Plus series and higher from 2025 onwards, such as the DS925 Plus, will only allow you to use Synology certified drives, and that comes down really to two different categories. That is either drives like their own series of hard drives or SSDs, or drives as they gradually get added to their compatibility list. Now, a lot of you will go, hasn't that always been the case? Sort of true, but unfortunately the 2025 generation series and later, if your drive that you buy isn't on that supported list, which at the time of recording is literally only Synology drives, the result is you cannot even initialize this system. It will only see Synology disks. That's a big deal breaker for a lot of users. Now, counter to that point, their system does have a bunch of advantages to it. Utilising BTRFS as its file system for storage, it also has things like fast repair, which is when RAID recovery conducts only quick rebuild of where the data existed on the drive, zeroing the rest out, thereby reducing RAID recovery. Now, RAID, by the way, is when you have a safety net of a bunch of drives, and if one of them dies, you can still access all of your data and not lose anything, and then introduce a new drive. On top of that, they have on there write once, read many as mentioned, but also SHR, something that I query how long that's going to be around with Synology's new hard drive policy. SHR, Synology Hybrid RAID, allows you to mix and match drives. So if you went for a 4-bay like this and installed two 4TB drives, and down the line, maybe a few years later, you bought two 10TB drives, SHR will allow you to absorb some of that extra storage and benefit from the larger drives, whereas in traditional RAID configurations, all drives are all judged by the smallest available drive. So in that scenario, in a traditional RAID, if you put in two 4TBs and two 10TBs, it would still treat every drive like 4TB. So there is still some good stuff there to love about. And as mentioned, support of iSCSI, support all the file protocols available on both of them. Now, QNAP allows you to use pretty much any NAS class or even just general server class drive or surveillance class drive from WD, Seagate, Toshiba and more. And that extends to SSDs as well from the likes of Samsung, Toshiba, Samsung, Kingston, you name it, it all goes in there. You can also utilize all of those for storage pools, for caching. It's all available to you. On the Synology side, there is support of M2 NVMEs, but in the majority of cases, you can only use those for caching. If you're using third-party drives, and in the 2025 generation, again, only their own drives are supported. But at the very least, if you use their own drives, you can create M2 NVMe storage pools. Whereas on the QNAP side, you can use practically any M.2 NVMe brand and use it for caching, for storage, or if you use the ext4 QTS software platform, you can use something called Qtier that spreads data across all of the disks inside, and therefore allows you to leverage the performance or capacity benefits of different storage media in a single storage space. There are a lot more storage advantages there. Also, they take advantage of QUTS, the ZFS option of their software, even down on this level, by the way. So you can get this 500 NIC NAS drive and have a ZFS powered storage system. So that's inline data deduplication, inline data compression and compaction. Also, the system builds its RAID configurations quicker, as well as supporting triple parity RAID configurations. Some of this, such as inline data deduplication, is available on the Synology side, but it's not as powerful or as efficient as it runs on a ZFS platform, it has to be said. Ultimately, in terms of storage, another thing we have to talk about is expandability. There are more expansion devices connected via both USB and PCIe upgrade cards on the QNAP side. On the Synology side, it is a lot stricter, with only a handful of expansion devices available, and on those expansion devices, only a handful of their Synology systems supporting expandability, whereas practically all QNAP devices support expansion devices. Ultimately, in terms of storage, there's a lot to be said for the QNAP side there in terms of capability, but having storage isn't enough. Let's talk about the software. Okay, so we've made our way here onto the desktop of the Synology system and the QNAP system. Now, a few things out of the gate. Number one, I'm not going to go into horrific detail about both of these platforms, largely because I've done it before. I've done numerous articles on both Synology's DSM platform, deeping all the way through to full, in-depth, hour-long breakdowns of these software platforms, to QTS and QUTS hour-long reviews of both platforms, along with guides on exactly how they work. So I'm not going to repeat myself for a lot of that. And the other thing I'm going to highlight is I am working on an article right now where I'm comparing all of the feature set of these platforms. So it will be linked in the description below, but this will give you some idea about what features both of these platforms have, but more importantly, where they differ in certain areas. For example, when it comes to different RAID configurations, when it comes to file systems, different application services that you can use. So I recommend checking that out if you need something a little bit more modular and you want to know more about a specific feature that one brand may offer you that the other one doesn't. But hopefully that will be done by the time the video goes out. But there is the user interface for both of these brands. They've both got their respective client application that you can install on your system to find a device, map network drives to configure the device very, very easily there. But when it comes to accessing these systems via the web browser, you do have a very similar level of kind of desktop level access via the web browser. You can also utilize, again, client applications available to download on their respective platforms. You've got mobile applications that vary quite wildly in terms of quality and the feature set they cover. Again, available whether it is on iOS or Android or your desktop service of choice. But navigation between the two of them, I would argue the QNAP one feels a little bit more Androidy. You've got the main desktop that you can pull apps onto, and then you can pull up the side menu there and you can find out more about them. You've also got control, and as mentioned in previous videos, the QNAP system, although it has a lot of the features that you're going to use, whether it is you go for the QUS or QUTS platform, there is slight inconsistency on how the apps are displayed. A lot of the design philosophy, I would argue as well. So for example, going into the general settings, it gets quite small text there, and the storage manager is a lot more kind of detailed and technical. If you love that sort of thing, you're going to have a wonderful time here. Whereas on the Synology side, the design philosophy, so I'm just going to open up another app on the QNAP side to give you some idea about how design kind of differs quite wildly app to app to app, because you could look at something like Containerization, which is a lot more colourful, a lot more bold, and a lot of the text kind of differs between different services of how the display of certain things change, whereas there is a consistent design philosophy on the Synology side, which although arguably less informative, is certainly less abrasive when flicking between apps and services when you want to run different things on their platform. Indeed, the user experience is a lot more colourful, feels a little bit more responsive as well, but alongside that, on the Synology side, it will also feel a little bit more limited as they go for a more consistent, stable experience. Think of console gaming versus PC gaming, or playing a system that is running on a consistent 30 frames per second high fidelity graphics versus that of an unlocked 60 or even 120 running on kind of as best as you can get, but a less stable experience. It really comes down to what you want out of the output of your hardware. File management between both platforms is pretty similar between the two of them there. The QNAP side has a lot more customization in what you can do. And again, both of them have got the option for creating shared folders, applying write once, read many features and functionality there. But it would be argued that the Synology side probably does it in a little bit more of a chewable, friendly way. A lot of the features being added there. Again, that goes down to applications of write once, read many and encryption. Whereas on the QNAP side, it generally is trying to do quite a lot, and often that can lead to those inconsistencies once again. But I will say the feature set on the QNAP is more often than not a lot better tooled. To put it into perspective, the range of applications and services from Synology are becoming increasingly more first party, which is all right for the most part. And when you do focus more on a first party app, so for example, the Synology surveillance application is unparalleled in its quality, really. You have fewer cameras, camera licenses, I should say, and also, as they've started rolling out their own cameras, there is concern for some users that Synology will start limiting the number of third-party cameras it does support, not dissimilar to what they've been doing with their hard drives there. QNAP, on the other hand, have got a lot more AI-led options for surveillance on their platform that you can use on even modest Celeron systems, whereas on the Synology side, you either have to use Edge AI cameras or go for one of their DVA appliances, which again will cost you more. Also, there's more camera licenses. You can have 8 cameras off the bat when you go for QNAP's platform, and by the way, that applies to both now the QUTS and QTS platform, and that means if you go on the Synology platform, you only get 2 camera licenses unless you use their own cameras. There's something to keep in mind. They've also got a lower resource surveillance application in QVR Elite on the QNAP platform, but again, a lot of people prefer QVR Pro, largely thanks to those extra camera licenses. In terms of multimedia, it has to be said that Synology have been coming under a lot of flack because they have started kind of trimming the fat, so to speak. For example, Video Station in the latest version of Synology's DSM platform is now gone. You have to rely on Plex, which for some is going to be fine. But if you want to take advantage of things like hardware transcoding on Plex or some of the more advanced features, unfortunately you need a subscription service, the paid platform for Plex, which some users don't like. Because if you bought a NAS, you've bought the hardware, it's your media, the very idea you've got to pay for a third-party subscription isn't ideal. So though you can do that on the QNAP platform, they have still maintained their own multimedia platform in Video Station. They both have an AI-powered photo recognition app, but I will argue the Synology one has fewer features. It does have geolocational map display for their photo application, but again, you can go into way more detail on the videos and articles I've mentioned earlier on. But long story short, when it comes to photography, you're going to have a smoother experience on the Synology side, but a much richer configurable experience on the QNAP side. And a big part of that, by the way, is because the QNAP has this AI core, which is used for numerous features, be it for photo recognition, object recognition, but it's also extended to file management, queue file, searching, documenting and categorizing things with semantic search. That all comes under having that AI core, again, runnable on even a modest system like this one, which is just running on a Celeron processor there. In terms of backups and backup handling, overall, I'm going to say that the Synology probably wins here, but not by an enormous margin. So, for example, if we go into both respective application centers and we go for the categories of backup there between the two of them, what you'll find is both of them have a decent number of applications and services there. On the QNAP side, the standout ones, BoxSafe allows you to synchronize with Office 365 and Google Workspace. Then you've got Hybrid Mount that allows you to mount remote access storage from the likes of your Google Drive, OneDrive and more, and make them have the appearance of local. Then you've got Hybrid Backup Sync that allows you to manage a multi-tiered backup operation. And then down below you've got things like Qsync for synchronizing local folders on your PC or Mac system, creating data streaming, PIN files. Again, way more detail on this in the hour-long video. And then you've got things like the Mars application that up until recently allowed you to synchronize with your Google Photos apps and more. They have a lot of decent apps, and that's notwithstanding Hyperdata Backup, which is largely based on virtual machine synchronization. Now, that isn't to say that these aren't good. They are good, but they're not as good as the Synology ones. Most people agree that Active Backup for Business, for example, a comprehensive backup application, enterprise class, which is included with license free on your system, is unparalleled. And most users, a lot of users I would say, other than Surveillance Station and Synology Drive, Active Backup for Business is one of the main reasons people buy Synology NAS systems. You can also use it to synchronize with Google Workspace and Office 365, as well as cloud synchronization and its own app, Hyper Backup, which is the Synology version of Hybrid Backup Sync, but Hyper Backup is just a lot more streamlined and easier to use. Again, I'll stop saying it, but I'll link to them in the description. You'll see guides on exactly how to use both of these in the linked videos. Ultimately, between the two of them, there are fewer applications on the Synology side, but these seemingly run a lot more consistently and smoothly for most users based on long-term reports. There's a lot of customization on the QNAP side, for example, whereas Hybrid Mount on the QNAP side allows you to bolt on any number of third-party cloud platforms. The Hybrid Share application on the Synology side only supports their own cloud service. And you'll find that more and more between these two platforms. A greater degree of third-party support on the QNAP side alongside the dedicated single ecosystem drive on the Synology side of things. And talking of drive, we've got to talk about Synology Drive. Synology Drive is another application which is comparable to Qsync Central on the QNAP side, but Synology Drive just seemingly does it that little bit better. It allows you to quickly and easily synchronize multiple devices with your NAS system to seamlessly allow for not only backups but remote access to be done as easy as possible. Now, say for example you want to access Office docs, Synology have their own Office application, their own Office docs for Excel docs, PDFs, PPTX, .docx, the works. That is included with your system. Whereas on the QNAP side, there is a plugin to take advantage of Microsoft's applications and services in the web browser. They've gone about it different ways, and again, single ecosystem versus a leveraged point between first and third party. Time and time again, this is the main difference. And this extends to containerization and virtual machine deployment there. Between these two platforms, both of them have their own virtual machine application there. So for example, if we have a look at the main apps on both and we look at the virtual machine tool, both of them have a ready to go straight out the box virtual machine application that you can use to run virtual environments, Windows, Linux, the works there. But they both also have containerization. In the case of Synology, recently they've migrated away from dedicated Docker for their containerized applications now towards the Synology Container Manager there, which again is sort of just a reskin of Docker, whereas on the QNAP side they've gone for Container Station. It's their very own container application that arrives with a bunch of other bells and whistles that allows them to again provide a much more consistent and kind of flexible deployment of containerization, and things such as GPU pass-through, vCPU and memory sharing, which although available to a lesser degree on the Synology side, are a lot more customizable on the QNAP side. Finally, security. Security is something both of these brands are going to have to take very seriously, and we'll move on to that in the studio in a moment, but just seeing how both of them handle it within their settings is giving you some idea about just how easy or difficult it can be. Synology on their security side have a lot of much higher designated general security settings out of the box. Both of them have got two-factor authentication and more, but between the two of them, configuring your security protocol is arguably easier on the Synology side. Now, a big part of that is the way both of them handling it. On the case of the QNAP, you have got their own security management service there. Now, you have to install it as an extra option. Now that is going to annoy some users. So for example, if you want to scan your system periodically, you want to take advantage of the firewall application, all of these bells and whistles and extra things in the security center on the QNAP, you have to install it as an extra app. Now again, we go into way more detail here on the QNAP video, and it does allow you to manage firewall rules, manage login security, auto block, and scan the system periodically to make sure your system's as secure as possible using that Security Center app. Why it's not a default app, I simply don't know. Whereas on the Synology side, it arrives with that Security Manager pre-installed out of the gate. Now the Security Advisor, again on both platforms, allows you to scan the system for weak passwords, vulnerabilities, as well as assessing things like security updates on the system and how and when they are activated, downloaded, when they are relevant, and that extends, by the way, all the way down to the individual apps and services. And on the QNAP side, it is a lot more granular, I will give them that. They're giving you the option when it comes to updates on their platform to allow you to choose to automatically update things based on, for example, most featured updates, security, quality, and more. But it's not as straightforward and as user-friendly as the Synology side. But let's head back into the studio and talk a little bit about security. Next up, security, because frankly, this is something of a hammer that has been hit against QNAP for a very long time. And although they have made measures in the last few years to rectify a lot of those things, some of it we've still got to talk about. Synology, between the two of them, has a better reputation for security, notwithstanding the standard stuff like two-factor authentication, SSL certificate implementation there when you need it, remote access via their server, integrating it out the gate. On top of that, the brand themselves have engaged with multiple security organizations, PSIRT, having pen testing throughout their own Synology security response team there, also engaging earlier than anyone else on the NAS market with things like Pwn to Own and their own bounty program. Ultimately, not just trying to intercept security issues, but actually incentivizing those that try to find them to share them so they can sew those holes up. Now, QNAP, on the other hand, have made measures. They have implemented pen testing and PSIRT, as well as engaging with Pwn to Own recently. But things like several different ransomware attacks that affected their platform a few years ago have left a lot of users doubtful of the security compared to that of a Synology. It's not terrible. They have implemented multi-factor authentication and two-factor authentication, the same SSL certification, as well as implementing the ease of both first-party remote access with their own QNAP MyCloud service, but on top of that, allowing you to very easily install things like Tailscale and more on this system, have tightened security significantly. However, it has to be said that one look at Google News will tell you that between the two of them, if you're going to count points, the Synology platform still maintains the highest level of security. But if you know what you are doing when setting up your network and remote access to these systems, you can significantly reduce attack vectors to as close as possible to zero anyway. But for the brand themselves, if you had to guess right now who has taken security more seriously in the 20 to 25 years, you're going to pick Synology. And there you go, that is it. It is just a question really for a lot of users about hardware. It always has been, and it's such a shame that it continues to be so. I think most people, gun to their head, will always say the Synology platform software is better than that of the QNAP side of things. But the argument for the hardware that Synology are providing, the limitations that they've been applying to some of their hard drive compatibility listings, have rubbed a lot of users up the long way, and killing off services like Video Station annoyed some users. Some of the little file service features that have got reduced, USB utilization being reduced, and the sheer scalability of Synology platforms, particularly in the desktop, has become harder and harder to a point where they're prepared to overlook some of the issues that QNAP have been accused of in the past. QNAP, for their part, have spent the last year and a half at least focusing and doubling down on that software more. They've released less hardware in the last 18 months than any other period in their 20 years of business. Their hardware has got solidified, and even this system here, the TS464 released in 2022-2023, at the time of recording is still their flagship 4-bay. Some other brands will even allow you to install third-party operating systems like TrueNAS or Unraid on their hardware. Sadly, neither one of these two brands engage with that. Bottom line, the QNAP platform is still going to give you more in terms of hardware, and they have improved upon that software there. But you're not going to get the same smooth experience that you would get from DSM. So if you're prepared to spend a little bit more time on your system, getting it set up correctly, and you want customization and flexibility both on day one and day 1000, the QNAP is going to be very appealing to you. But just be aware of what you are losing from the Synology platform in terms of less of a hardware experience, but more of a software solution experience. And maybe you can get over the whole hard drive locking business, or the fact that it's a much more closed ecosystem. Apart from that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you next time.